So I saw a post from Alec Torelli here where he was talking about solvers, and you can go check it out and see the video where he talked about basically how solvers aren't all they're cracked up to be, yada yada. And I agree with everything that he said. They're a tool, and in order to use them correctly, you they have to be well, in order for them to be useful, they have to be used correctly, right? Just like anything. Um, so I wanted to make a video and review a spot, and I'm just gonna walk you through how um, I'm not gonna play the video. You can go to his Instagram page. I'll put the links in the description. But I'm gonna walk through a. So instead of using the hand that he used, well, he used it in a tournament, and I don't do, I don't play tournaments. It's just not my thing. I like cash. Um, so this is a full, um, this is a full tree. Single raise, so single raise pots are 75% bet with 50% raises. Um, 3-bet pots are 33% with 50% raises. And then turn and river are 50%. And then I'll say the river. And then we also have the option for the overbet. And that's how I made the entire tree. I started experimenting here because I wanted to see the EV difference with where's the paper at? I got it written down right here. So I wanted to see the EV difference of a range that looks, let's see. Well, see, this is bullshit because this one doesn't have mixed in it. Hold on a second. I gotta go to my task manager real quick and see. So I have 25 gigs, so I have plenty. I still have 100 gigs left. So I can open a new. Let me open up another Munker real quick. Open it up on my second screen, and then I'll bring it back over and I'll load. Oh no, not the tree. Solve, open. Right here. I'm gonna load one street because one street does show the EV as long as you don't refresh it. But I just wanted to show for comparison. So you most of the time when you lock ranges at 100 or 0, you will have you're gonna lose some, but it's not gonna be what you think. As you'll see what I'm talking about. Speaking of that, let me pull up the paint tool so I can write up. So the way that, let's grab this. Let me grab my pen. Alright, so we have pre-flop, and then we have flop, turn, and river. So you have a pre-flop action, right? and that leads to the flop action. So we're going to say that there's check or bet. And then those lead check, bet, and these lead to check or bet, and then these lead to check or bet. And as you can see, the tree is getting, I'm just trying to give you a understanding here. So this is one node, right? So we'll call this pre-flop action 1. And we'll say it's under the gun, RFI, fold to big blind, who cold calls, right? And obviously there's going to be more actions in here because this tree will actually look like check, and then there's check bet, and then check bet goes, check goes to turn, and bet goes to call, raise, fold. Call goes to turn, raise goes to raise, call, fold. This ends the hand. And then raise goes to call, shove, fold. Call goes to turn, and fold goes to end. You see what I'm saying? So each decision has a tree like this. And so each E, or each end of hand, is considered a node, right? So when you are looking here and it says 32 iterations per node, that means every node, right? Every end of hand has been ran 32 times. Which I know you're probably thinking in your head, oh, that ain't shit, 32 times. Every single node. And so the way that Munker works is it uses buckets. So let's go open, call, fold, fold. So on this board, right, you see how there's gray buckets, and then so this is this bucket would be, so it's hard to explain, I guess, but basically though, it separates hands into having flush draws or blockers and not having flush draws or blockers. So if you don't have any of the suits, then the hand goes into the non-bucket, right? And then there's also strength buckets, which you can do here. If you view example, aces, kings, other, this one here that I made, aces, kings, queens, jacks, nines, eights, non-ace broadways, ace with a face card. You see what I'm getting at here? It's actually kind of interesting. So we check sixes, fives, fours, deuces. No Broadway suited connectors. So it's going to be 10-9 to 3 deuce, which we don't open 3 deuce, but yeah. Anyway, it uses buckets to, and those you can, so if you go here, you can make your own and make it whatever you want for those. for the views. Go back to default. Anyway, so that's what I was getting at. So the EV, the iterations per node, you don't need a massive number because, all right, this is actually what I was getting at. So from 1, right, this here, under the gun RFI, fold to big blind who cold calls, right? This preflop node, if let's just count these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then each one, we'll say each one has 10, so we'll say 800 roughly. We'll say 800 nodes per one of these, and each one of those was ran 32 times, right? So that means this spot has been ran in insane amount of times, right? It's something like 24,000, somewhere around there. So under the gun RFI folds to big blind who cold calls. In this preflop, in this simulation, right? Under the gun opens, fold, big blind calls, right? This simulation has around 25,000 nodes for preflop ranges. I'm not talking about post-flop. I don't care about that. I'm not talking about that yet. Just pre-flop alone. So those numbers I trust, right? And this is what the range looks like if you just let the solver do whatever the solver does, right? You let it pick the ranges. You let it pick the hands that it opens, the hands that it folds. This right here, you're gonna spend all this time learning hands like this, learning percentages, iterate, how to randomize. You're gonna learn all this shit for pre-flop, right? And you're gonna gain 0.2 big blinds per 100. That's insane. You're wasting brain power trying to learn things like that. You're not, there's no reason for it. There's no reason to try to make these adjustments. You're not a fucking computer. You're not going to know. You're not going to, you're going to make mistakes. You're probably going to cost yourself money because you're going to make more mistakes by doing that. So what I did instead is I did this. I locked it, and I know some people aren't going to like this range, yada yada, but we're 8-handed in a loose game where people are going to call more often in position with hands they shouldn't. They're not playing like a solver would. So and you have to think too that a lot of these hands are opening because these hands are not only going to overflush, but they're going to be used as 4-bet bluffs a lot of times, right? So we go 3-bet, and we look at our 4-bet range. We have ace-5 and ace-4. So where do the ace-9s go? They're always folding. So I guess they're just basically looking to overflush against the blinds because they're nut suits and because they make top pairs. So maybe they protect it. Maybe it protects its checkback range when he's in position, or it protects his checking range when he's out of position. I mean, I don't know. That would be something I would be curious to explore on why the solver chooses these hands specifically ace 6 through ace 9. Anyway, so I picked this range because it's strong. You know, it has the top hands in it, obviously. It has these hands, which cover our low boards. It has these hands, which cover our middling. And these cover. So we have board coverage and strength, which is what I'm looking for. And we're sacrificing 0.2 big blinds. In this range, I can remember. Right? I mean, pretty fucking simple in comparison. So then that one folds. Let's go to the next range. We have this versus this. And we are, where is it? Right here, 4.7 big blinds per 100. It's 4.8. It's actually slightly better than this range. This is what I'm talking about. There's no reason to. You could pick any range, right? So I mean, I don't think I put the video on there, but I picked like an absurd range from under the gun, just to see how wide you would actually have to open to be losing money. It's not as wide as you think. It's something along these lines, like this. Looks something like this. Basically, button cutoff range is going to be losing money under the gun. It can't balance enough. The solver can't. And let's be honest, the average live player's range probably looks I wouldn't say that. Yeah, right here. This is the average live player. Right here. This is what they play. And then they probably throw in some of this shit as well. Hands like this, they probably don't play those though. Most people don't. But your average player, this is their entire fucking range right here. This is what they all play. They call fucking cold call 3-bets with, shit like this. This range. Fucking cold calling 3-bets. Like just lighting money on fire. Anyway, so before you say anything about my ranges being, oh, your ranges are locked. It's not that big a fucking deal. Okay, everyone should lock ranges. Everyone should node lock. And you should do it with ranges that you're comfortable with. Find hands that. So like there's a million ways that you could do this. You could, if you don't like playing, like let's say for instance, these hands. You don't like these hands. You don't know how to play these hands. Right? You always end up in weird spots. You don't know when you should call down with the ace, when you shouldn't, when you flop an ace. How do you play when you flop a gutter? And, he's showing strength. How often do you fold? What boards do you defend? Blah, blah, blah. If you don't know how to play these hands and you don't want to study these hands, then don't fucking open them. Add these hands. Add one of these. Drop this. If you really wanted to, you could do this and just fucking open pairs because it's super simple. Fucking drop. Well, no, I wouldn't drop those, and I wouldn't open king queen offsuit unless it was like super super soft game. But I mean, you could realistically open this range right here, and it's so easy to play. And you would probably crush everyone in live poker because people just don't pay attention to shit. Most players just don't. They don't care. they play their cards and they occasionally try to run bluffs. And I mean, you're either going to have it or you're not with this range, you know. But me, I'm thinking I need to be slightly more balanced because I do have bluffs and I do run multiple street bluffs, where I will raise under the gun and then check raise the flop, bet turn, and overbet jam river. So, like, if I want to get paid off, I have to play against people that will pay off with worse hands, and I need to have board coverage in my range. Whether they know that I have board coverage or not is, it's an advantage to me if they don't think that I do. If they're putting me on, this range right here, when I'm making plays like that, but I have my entire range, obviously I'm going to have a massive advantage, and I'm going to make money long term because I'm going to cover more boards, I'm going to cover more turns, more rivers, yada yada. Okay, now back to the original, what I started with about the Alec Torelli hand. So I'm playing 2-5 button opens. I put the 3-bet in. Big blind folds. He calls. Board comes. Oh wait, no. Let's go back. This is what I was talking about before. So these have. Oh, if you rewind it, you can see there's 50,000 iterations per node on pre-flop. I think that one only had 12 iterations per node on the whole thing. So this one's probably closer to 100, 150,000 for pre-flop. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up a second munker. Right? And we're going to bring it over here. We're going to say new. On the flop, 2 players. And the first stack. So first let's go here and get the action. We have an open, a 3-bet, a fold, and a call. So then we have 740 on the button, 740 in the big blind, and I forgot to put the pot in. So there's 740, 740, and 125 in the pot. We're going to do empty tree. No all ends. What the fuck is that? No. Damn it. Okay, so make sure to set your... Just so you can see, this is my live 2.1 SPR shoving. Calls and folds don't matter all that much. You can go through it. I have other videos that show it. 125, 740, 740, blank tree, done. Okay, so let's open this up. Go to ranges. Let's bring this over here. Then let's go back to this range. This is the opening range for button. Copy and paste. Open, and then we're gonna copy and paste. This is our big blind range. And you can also change this. So that's another thing that I was going to say. So although this is the button range, I think that this specific villain, I've played with him before. He's a young kid. He super aggressive. Plays a lot of hands. For instance, there was a limp, a raise to 25. He flats 25 in the cutoff, button flats. I fold in the small blind, big blind calls. Flop was Jack 6 deuce, and Jack 6 deuce two tone checks to the razor. Razor bets 60. Villain calls, button calls, big blind folds, limper folds. Turn is a 4. Razor bets 110. Villain calls, button folds, big blind folds. River's a 4. He checks. Villain bets 260. Snap calls. He has 3-4 offsuit. So he called 25 pre-flop with 3-4 offsuit. Called a flop bet on a two-tone board on Jack 6 deuce with 3-4 offsuit. So this is the player that I'm playing against, right? This is the button in this hand, which the sizings weren't exactly right, because he opened to 25 and I made it 80, but that's not going to affect it as much. But what I am going to do is open up his range to include these, because for some reason he loves these offsuit connectors, and I'm going to drop a few of these hands. I would imagine that he's opening all the ace X. He's definitely opening all king X and queen X suited. He's opening all these suited connectors. He probably doesn't play 3 deuce, although he might, so I'm going to put it in there. And for me, knowing that, I'm 3-betting all this shit. I'm 3-betting all my ace X hands against him. And I'm 3-betting 6s, 10, 9, 9, 8. All of this and all of this. Simply because I'm just going to have him crushed so often. So now we're going to add custom filter. We're going to add a third, 50 or 100% pot with 50% raises. Street is flop. Although it's a 3-bet pot. I forgot about that. So 3-bet pots, I always go 1/3. So if he raises to 50, I can re-raise. Yeah. Okay. So now we're going to take care of the turn. So the actual action was I bet 1/3. He called. On the turn, I bet 50%. So 50%. Raise 50%. Turn 50%. Raise 50%. That's correct. 50%. Raise. Call. Okay. And that's all I need. Wait, what? Flop check. He checks and we see a turn. I have no option to bet. done. And then we're going to specify the board. It was ace 10 6. Let's go to settings. 2 gigs. Let's go very compact. Doesn't really change. 4000 rate pre-flop, even though pre-flop doesn't matter. So M chips, I think I already did a video on this. 1000 M chips is 1 small blind. The rake here is $6 for the main rake plus 2 for promotion, so it's $8. 2.5. 4 times 2 is 8, or $8 rake divided by 2 is 4 times 1000. 10%. The rake is correct. Let's run it. And then we're going to let this run. This is how I start reviewing a hand, right? And now here, the iterations per node matters more than it does here, because here it includes preflop, so this matters significantly less. For instance, if I shut this down now and then open it back up, and we're going to open up a single instance of or not a single instance, but we're going to open 25 locked, load 1 street, because I just want to see how many iterations it actually is for preflop. This is preflop only. Yeah, 161,000 for preflop per node. So that means open and then call. This has ran 161,000 times. Open, call, squeeze. This situation has ran 161,000 times. You see what I'm getting at? But when you take a full sim with 33 iterations per node and you take that all the way to the river, it's only got 30 on that river decision. There's only 30 iterations per node. So that means that river decision, when you say bet and then you're deciding whether to call or not, that spot has only been ran 30 times in comparison. So that's why you can't run these full sims and then expect to use them. You have to run these, and it's still jumping around quite a bit. So we're going to let it chill, but basically I want to see what the range is here. So we're 40 and 20. See, now this is what I'm talking about with this mixing shit, right? So we're always everything is always mix. That's interesting that Queen Jack suited. So Queen Jack WW. Queen Jack suited. We're always betting. I guess because button didn't 4-bet, it doesn't have ace king and mostly going to have, and we block ace queen and ace jack, which makes it less likely that he has ace queen and ace jack, because we block ace queen and ace jack, and he's not supposed to have ace king. Oh shit. I'm glad I just realized that. The ranges are wrong. Because my range is uncapped and his is not. So open, 3-bet, fold, call. Now this range is not something that I picked. This is not locked. So this is button 4-bet range, which I'm going to make a few adjustments because after playing with this guy, I already know that what he's 4-betting. He's 4-betting queens and jacks, 100%. Ace king and ace queen at 100% frequency. But he's definitely peeling with this. He's peeling with all of these. He's probably peeling these and these. He might peel that. He's definitely peeling all of his ace X. I think this is more of his 4-bet range. He's pretty tight with the 4-bets. He's not really bluffing, but if he does bluff, I would imagine it's going to be hands like this. So we'll give him that range. Now we have to start over, but at least it's running fast. So the hand in question, I see bet. He flats. The turn is an offsuit 7. I bet basically min clicks, and I go in the tank here because I know how wide he plays, and at the same time I don't know that he's gonna call it off here with, like, let's say 8-6, right? Like 8-6 of clubs. If I jam, I don't think he calls it off. But if I flat and he bricks, I think he will pretty much always jam the river as a bluff. Especially if the river makes the nuts change. Like, you hopefully that makes sense. I think that by jamming, I'm getting him to fold, that he's really only folding, hands that I'm beating. Like, which I haven't told you what I have yet. But I'm going to go back through it and we'll run the hand again with my exact hand and see how I played it. Because this is the spot that I was actually curious if it was better for me to take a certain line than to not take a certain line, I guess. As you can see, though, it's jumping around like crazy, right? So I call, and the river is a queen. And I check, he jams, and I call. And now my specific hand was aces. So now let's go back to the flop. We see bet 100%. He calls. That's interesting that we check this turn. I would bet money that we're checking to shove, because I thought about doing that. I'm being 100% honest. I thought about checking the turn and jamming, but then I also thought that he's going to check back hands like 4 or 5 of diamonds, or 9-5 of diamonds, or Queen Jack of clubs. He's gonna check back these like no showdown, don't want to get check raised type of hands, because he doesn't play standard. Well, I don't have any showdown value, so I better bet here. He doesn't fall for those kind of setups. He bets when he has weak showdown value and a draw, or he has a strong hand. And everything else he's just checking and just giving up. And I don't want to give him the opportunity to check back and take a free card here on this board, because against his range it's pretty wet. But apparently I was wrong. The solver says that I should be checking here. And we're not checking to shove, we're checking to call. I don't understand. So let's see what I don't understand. What is he betting here? He's betting nuts, nut blockers, pair plus. Wow, the ranges are still jumping around like crazy. I'm watching this number here. See how it's still moving significantly. 60, 59, 58, 56, 55, 53. Still moving a lot. But let's go back to the flop. And this is the reason, just if you didn't know why I chose 33%, is I pretty much range bet when I 3-bet. So when it starts to flatten out like the flop here, the flop I think is good, right? I think we've hit enough iterations. These numbers aren't moving at all against this. So instead of leaving these options open and making it run more for those, right? And then he calls. So now we're on the turn. Now you see these, but it still has to run through all the nodes on the flop. So let's go back. And then let's open up one more. Now the turn and river, you don't need to run another one for the river. Turn, 2 players. So we go bet and call. We have 207.5 with 698.8 behind. done. And now we'll go back. And we'll go to ranges. And we'll go to big blind. Copy. Paste. No. Range. Okay. Bet. And then he calls. Copy. And paste. We'll close that. And then we'll do same thing. We'll add to all. And we'll say 50. We'll just run it on all of them. Just to make sure. Solve. We have ace, 10, 6, and 7. And then we'll run. And then we'll save. Save as. 2, 5. Small line. First button. YouTube. And I should have saved that a little better. So now let's go to this, and we'll go load one street. We want to see the flop. Flop only. Now look. 3,463,000 times it ran this flop. You see what I'm saying? The more you reduce it, the faster it can solve because it has less nodes. It has less options to take. See how we're deducing it? Because before it was only at like 500 iterations per node, but it's ran this flop 3.4 million times. So these pre-flop ranges, 161,000 times for each situation, every situation possible. This flop, it's ran every single one 3.4 million times. Now we move to the turn. There we go. And see what I'm saying? The turn and river is now, I mean, it solves super fast in comparison. So now let's look at aces. Aces are supposed to be a check. So if we check, so let's go back and let's bet. What is his raising range? 9-8 pocket tens, 10-9, 9-7, 8-7. So what are the hands that I am betting? 9-8, 10-9. So I'm betting Queen Jack. Ace 10. Ace Queen, Ace King. So I'm betting all my ace X, betting my gutters. I mean, that's, I mean, it makes sense, but this, so like these hands, I would be betting less. Queen 10 and Jack 10, just in my mind, I would bet flop, and then I would be looking to check call turn and give him opportunity to turn a hand like King. If I have Jack 10, I want him to turn King Queen into a bluff. If I have Queen 10, I want him to turn King Jack into a bluff. and bet and not check back. And if he does check back, that's fine. I'll take the showdown. King 9 suited. Because we blocked the nuts. So then what hands do we check? If we're checking those. So we're using aces to protect our checking range. We use top set to protect our checking range. And we bet our weak. I mean, we check our weak ace X. So if we check and he bets, what hands do we fold? Okay, so we're folding all of our middle pair type hands when we check. So we're folding all the ones that don't. What? So I understand Queen Jack and King Jack. Obviously. King Queen I understand. King Queen suited. King Jack suited. I get that. But Queen 10 no diamond. Jack 10 no diamond. Jack 10 with the Jack of diamonds. I don't get that. I don't get why we would take that line. Against there. So what are we jamming? Two pair. Nines, eights, and a set of sevens. And we're min clicking nuts, sets, blockers, ace jack, and our one pair hands, our two pair hands. We're flatting most of our range. Which is, I mean, it's understandable. So we mix calling and folding. But honestly, this is what I'm talking about. So let's go back to here. And let's take this. Oops. And we're going to lock this. Which I don't know, it might freeze. It does that sometimes. It's super fucking annoying when it does that. It's not letting me lock it. Which, whatever. Okay, so what do we do with diamond? Well, no, I guess it would be diamond heart. And we have one blocker. Did that show the ace of diamonds? Oh. Oh, I gotcha. Alright. So so according to this, I made a mistake by betting aces. Which I think is pretty interesting, because if I check, he bets. as opposed to flat 100% of the time with aces. Which I understand, it protects my calling range. So I guess that's it. I guess I made a mistake. I don't like that. I don't like making mistakes. I can't believe that. I can't believe that's a mistake. I would have never thought that that would be a mistake. I would think that you would almost always want to bet the top, but I guess on this texture, giving my 3-bet range, which is going to be something more like this against him because he's just a fucking animal. I'm not going to 3-bet very many suited connectors against him because he's going to be opening so many of these weak connector type hands. I guess it's better to it would be better to check. Now, if I didn't 3-bet these hands, right? Let's say I 3-bet. Let's say my 3-bet range looked more like this. And was a lot more balanced. I bet that would change. I bet the aces would become a bet because I have less hands that I need to protect. Like my range would be smaller, so you would have less need for protection, if that makes sense. So maybe that's why, because he plays so loose, I have to protect my call range. I have to protect my check call range because my range is going to be so wide on the turn because I don't have a large sizing in a 3-bet pot. Because I only have small sizings in 3-bet pots, especially at that stack depth. So as stacks get deeper, let's say say I'm 6 hours or so into a session and 2K effective, that's a different story. Then that 1/3 sizing goes out the window because now I have more options. Now I have 1/3, half pot, and I also have check flop, overbet turn, which is another line that I take, and I use that one consistently when stacks are deeper. So I check flop, and if he checks back, I bet 150% of pot on turn. And I've studied that spot quite a bit because that's something that I was really using in 6-max games online. Especially like big blind versus button, big blind versus cutoff, where they open, I call, or I defend big blind, and then it goes check check on the flop. On the turn, I overbet 150. People have started to defend it more, but when I first started doing it, like, nobody knew what the fuck to do. They would just like freak out and just click buttons. Like they would just jam with like the effective nuts. You know what I mean? Like just come over the top with the effective nuts, or they would fold like an absurd amount of times. Even like strong hands. Because I did it a lot. So I tested it out on ignition to start because I wanted to see what the results would be. Because you get to view hands on ignition, and people were just not playing the way that I expected people to play. I played against someone that made this play against me, and it was like, wow, it was difficult to deal with, and I play with him a lot. So that's when I decided to put it in my arsenal and study it. But yeah. So I made a mistake there. Anyway, which one is it? This one. Okay. So anyway, I bet he min clicks. I no back. I bet he min clicks. I call. Give him some room to hang himself, I guess. And well, I did check the river, which I guess is a good thing. I did get that part right. And then he jams, and I mean I'm calling with tens, never folding a set. So wow, 10-9. That's a very interesting hero call. I guess because it unblocks the broadways and blocks the nuts. Well, second nuts. See, that spot's not solved either. It's still jumping all around. You'd have to run it again. You run another sim on the river, but I fucked up the flop. I mean, I fucked up on the turn. Anyway, so it doesn't matter. I'm not going to run the river. But I think you get the gist of it, of what I'm talking about, when you want to review a situation. And it's also good to review because then you, not only that, but you also get to see the other hands that you play that are in your range. You get to explore your range and villain's range on top of it. So you can figure out, like I said about the 3-4, right? Like he flat called the 3-4. Waited till, he called with the gutter on a two-tone board. Turned a pair. Called again on a two-tone board. And then on the river he hit trips, and when checked to him, he bet. He value bet trips. Which I'm not saying he shouldn't value bet trips, but he should have never fucking made it there. He should have never been in the hand to begin with. But, to each their own. I don't care what he does. But yeah, so you can explore the range, make adjustments based on what you think your villain can have. And if you're not paying attention, if you're not paying attention at the table, and you can't answer questions like what do I think his range is on this board, then you're fucking up, bro. You're only playing your hands, and you're leaving money on the table. So get your shit together. Don't leave money on the table. Moral of the story: fucking study. Ugh. Yeah, and that's it for this one. Um, yeah, don't leave money on the table. Get your shit together. All right, see you.